Hey, how are you today? Mad Cupid here, and I want to talk about an awesome build I have been using with Moze lately. I call it Fire Bear. It is such a great and very fun build to use. First off, it, of course, as the name says, it revolves around fire. So, of course, you're going to want some weapons that produce some type of fire. I'm currently using the Stark Hellshock. I'm using the Speed Load and Hellwalker, and I have the Stark Krakatoa. Those are a couple of the guns I have. And everything else really doesn't matter. With the artifact, it is always good to have something that will boost status effects or the ignite chance. One good thing to really get your hands on is this class mod. This class mod is amazing for this build. It helps so much. The High Octane Scorched Eternal Flame. It is so good. And it really makes this build even stronger than it already is. So, shield doesn't really matter. Grenade doesn't matter. I mean, you can do a fire grenade or something, because pretty much anytime you set an enemy on fire, you get boosts. You also can get boosts from other status effects, but fire is, of course, the main one you're going to use. So with this build, you're going to use 3 of the trees for Moze. Your main one being Bear Mother. Also going to put a lot in the Bottomless Mags, and a little bit into Demolition Woman, mainly for the fuel perks. I'm going to put a link to this build in the description. That way you can have a better look at it. You're going to put a little bit into Demolition Woman, a decent amount into Bottomless Mags, because you're going to be using dual salamanders. So with this build, you're going to put a little bit into Demolition Woman. You're going to put a decent amount into Bottomless Mags, just mainly because you want to get the salamander. The salamander is pretty much the bread and butter for this build. And I like to use Molten Roar because it gives you range. You can use the basic flamethrowers, that works too. I just like the range and the power that comes from Molten Roar. And now I will say that there are some enemies that fire will not do any damage to them. For example, the Wendigo. So what I'll do with that, if I run into an enemy that just can't be killed by fire, if it's a basic enemy, I usually just melee it to death. Or if it is a boss that I can't just melee to death, I will switch out one of the flame-throwing salamanders to make it a chemical warfare salamander, so I can shoot corrosive damage at them to at least keep the damage going. And next, we're going to talk about the biggest tree that you want to put the most skill into is the Bear Mother tree. This is really where your strength is going to take off with this build. There are different things in this tree that will allow you to get fuel back, get armor back, and at points not even burn fuel. With my class mod on the final skill, running on fumes, it gives me 1 extra point, giving me 12 seconds where I'm not consuming any fuel, as long as I have ignited an enemy. And usually 6 seconds if you don't have a mod on this. But I have a +1 mod, so it gives me 12 seconds where I'm not burning fuel. Of course, you're going to add to really big guns. With my mod, it gives me +3, so I have 8 right now. It, of course, just raises my strength. And another one that's really good to do is nitrotritium engines. Iron Bear will gain an increased maximum fuel and action skill cooldown rate. I got +1 to that. With my mod, it gives me +30% to maximum fuel and +24% to my action skill cooldown rate, because you're going to be an Iron Bear a lot with this build. It focuses more on Moze being an Iron Bear, and it allows you to stay an Iron Bear. You're going to be able to clear out mobs. You're going to be able to take down bosses with this. But I will say the downside to this build is that Moze isn't as strong on her own. She's good if you give her the right weapons, and I mean, I have good weapons for her, and she's good, but her main strength with this build is being an Iron Bear. She's fine without Iron Bear, but again, you're gonna really focus on Iron Bear, so you're gonna be an Iron Bear more than you're not going to be an Iron Bear. When you're done with a mob, you can just get out of Iron Bear, save your fuel, and literally the next mob you run into, you're going to be able to just jump right into Iron Bear and start taking them out. And of course, the other one is some enemies just can't be killed with fire. You can either melee them to death or switch out and use the chemical warfare salamander. But I always keep, when I do that though, I always keep one fire salamander just so I can have that ignite on other enemies that are around. But that's just one of the strategies. The good thing about this tree is it can be tweaked to your liking. You may not like exactly the way I did it. You may want to do it a little different. But that's a good thing about Borderlands. There's many ways to play the different Vault Hunters. Let's jump into Iron Bear and let me show you an example of how this build works when you are fighting a bunch of enemies. So, alright, we got some enemies. Let's jump into Iron Bear and test out this build. Pretty much took out that enemy in about one hit. Got the Anointed Zealots. And this is on the highest level of Mayhem mode. So, let's wipe out some... Oh, another Anointed. Now, they got the shield, but I'm still doing damage. And as you can see, the whole time I am lighting the enemies on fire, my fuel is not going anywhere. And I'm also getting fuel back. That is the one thing I love about this build. It really keeps you going in Iron Bear. One thing you do need to be aware of is your armor. You may need to back off, keep your distance. That's one reason I like Molten Roar, because it gives you the chance to back up and still attack from a distance. It has a lot more range than the basic flamethrower. But, well, got all the enemies, and I only used a quarter of a tank of my fuel, which is amazing. So, at this point, I hop out of Iron Bear, and I save the fuel, which goes into your cooldown for your action skill. And before you know it, you've got your action skill active again, and you can jump right back into Iron Bear next time you see enemies. And there you have it. That is the Fire Bear build for Moze. It is a very fun build to play with, and just because you can go around in Iron Bear for a long time, and it is high on the damage, and you don't use up a lot of fuel, that keeps you going. Again, you can tweak it any way you want to do it, and of course the downside is Moze isn't as good outside of Iron Bear as she is inside of Iron Bear, and there are enemies that are just immune to fire, so you may from time to time need to use the chemical warfare salamander, or just melee your enemies to death. Either way, you can defeat your enemies and do it really fast, and they won't even touch you. And again, this is, like I said, I love this build. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this build, and if you have a build that I should try out, please let me know about it in the comments. Again, I will put a link to this build into the description of this video below. That way you guys can check it out, see if you like it. I'd highly recommend, if you play with Moze, use this build. It is very fun, it's very effective, and you won't regret it. But with all that, I just want to thank you for watching the video. I will be working on some other builds for other Vault Hunters, and I'll be making videos on that. And also check me out on Twitch. I stream 3 days a week. I usually stream Monday and Wednesday mornings, starting at 9 Eastern, and Saturday night, starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. If I'm playing Borderlands, I do play with viewers, so definitely come check it out. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video.